before your next new flashlight purchase, I wanted to take a moment to talk with you about high CRI flashlights, what they are, and why you should look into buying them, and what CRI even is in the first place.
I'm Professor Lou Mann. CRI stands for Color Rendering Index, or how accurate the color is. For instance, if an LED emitter says that it's 4,000 degrees Kelvin, is the color actually close to that temperature mark, color temperature mark I should say. For relative comparison, daylight white is around 5,600 Kelvin, while candlelight is around 2,000 degrees Kelvin. So all this is in the idea that some lights will be much better at representing colors closer to how they would look as if they were under just daylight white. FYI, if you go down searching about this, it's going to take you down a rabbit hole of colors in general and the idea of absolute color versus relative color. Relative color could be described as the way your eye sees it and or the way your brain interprets it, while as absolute color is what the color actually is, the real color, and I'll put real in quotes because some might say perception is reality. But an example is if someone's colorblind, it may appear red to you, but it may appear yellow to that person. So,
thanks, Professor. I wanted to feature some views of some items lit up with everyday ambient light, and then also compare that to a handful of different flashlights just so you could get an idea of what a high CRI emitter looks like compared to some other emitters. And I thought the best way to do that was to try and keep all variables the same but one. So I bought a second tool, Lumintop 2.0 AA. All that jazz, the model name. The first one I bought is a Cree, let me see here, Cree LED. It's a XP-L HD, and it's comes in at, I have a little Opal Lightmaster 2. It comes in at 5750 Kelvin. I also just bought the second tool, Lumintop 8 AA 2.0. That's a Nichia 219C. That's a high over 90 CRI, 4,000 degree Kelvin emitter. And then I wanted to add, change all the variables up, and I added the Olight M2R Warrior Pro to the mix because I feel like it's the flashlight, one of the flashlights I love the styling the most of in my collection, but the emitter is literally the worst. It makes anybody's skin tone kind of look like they have jaundice. I might end up trying to find someone on Reddit who I could send it to have them swap out the LED, because then I could have a nice flashlight that I like the styling of that also emits good light, but that's neither here nor there. So the two flashlights look almost exactly the same because they basically are. Everything should be the same other than the emitter. I'm not 100% sure on how all the electronics and everything go together inside of a flashlight, so there's probably some little bits and bobs that change too on the circuit boards and everything, but that should be neither here nor there. I featured a very common toy we all remember, the Rubik's Cube, because it's got some solid colors to it. I also have some twisted pair cabling that you would use for computer networking because it's got different colored strands inside of it that I thought would also be very good use for comparison. And I also took a view of my skin with the three different flashlights illuminating it, just so you could get an idea of what flesh looks like under all these different lights, including ambient. The most common instances that I've seen that the high CRI flashlight LED matters is medical professionals like EMTs, if they're working at night and they need to highlight some bodily fluids or flesh to see if the person is exhibiting certain symptoms. I've also seen it for like electrical engineers and people who are working with cabling. If you're a bomb diffuser or something, they say, hey, it's at night, you got to cut the green wire. You don't want the colors to be off, and now you're cutting a wire that looks a little bluish instead of green. I wanted to feature the items lit up by ambient daylight. I also wanted to show you how much ambient daylight was left in the room when I closed the blinds, which you'll see in a second. And then I want to feature all the different lights compared to one another. So with the Rubik's Cube, we're going to start by looking at the 219C Nichia AA Tool 2.0. Then the next light we're going to see featured on this Rubik's Cube is going to be the lower CRI, higher Kelvin Tool 2.0. I want to say this one comes in at 5,700 Kelvin, so it's a little bit bluer than daylight white, and it's also a lower CRI. The last flashlight we're going to end up lighting this Rubik's Cube up with is the Olight M2R Warrior Pro. And you can see that it definitely adds a yellow tinge, even though the emitter shouldn't be as far as what Kelvin it's rated at. I'm then going to just do a four square featuring all four of them together so you can kind of see it all at the same time. And I'm even willing to admit that the warmer 4,000 Kelvin LED kind of changes the colors a little bit, as does the higher 5,700-ish Kelvin LED of the non-high CRI bulb. But if you look at flesh tones, The higher CRI one is definitely the lower Kelvin, so it warms up the flesh tone, but again, there's that jaundice look from the M2R, and here's the twisted cables, and you can see that the colors aren't exactly perfect on any of them, which is, if you need perfect color, I'd say get you a 5600 Kelvin high CRI LED flashlight. If you haven't owned one, the Lumintop Tool 2.0, I want to say shipped with everything from China for just under $30, so that's probably the cheapest entry point to get into high CRI LED flashlights. And otherwise, you know, look for a flashlight you like, and perhaps there's an option for a different emitter.